Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. End of part 1. The next morning, Emma woke up with a groan, the weight of her embarrassing exit from the night before still heavy on her mind. She had practically run out of the restaurant, her face red with shame. But as the morning light filtered through her apartment window, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about Liam stuck with her. She had assumed it was just nerves or a random encounter, but now, she found herself replaying their conversation over and over again in her head. Why had he been so nice? Why hadn't he just corrected her right away? She sighed, brushing the thought aside as she got ready for work. She had bills to pay and a dream to chase, and she couldn't afford to dwell on a guy she barely knew. At the diner, Emma slipped into her apron, trying to focus on the customers around her. It was another long shift of filling drink orders, serving food, and keeping her mind occupied. But she couldn't stop thinking about Liam. She hadn't expected him to text her. She hadn't even expected to care so much. The faintest memory of his smile flickered in her mind, but she quickly forced herself to push it away. Meanwhile, across the city, Liam was sitting in his sleek office, the view of the New York skyline spread out before him. But despite the usual comfort of his penthouse and the satisfaction of a productive morning, his thoughts kept drifting back to Emma. He had meant to stop her last night, to tell her that he wasn't Kevin, to correct the mistake. But there had been something about her, something refreshingly honest and real, that made him hesitate. He found himself wondering what she was really like, who she truly was behind the awkwardness and the second-hand dress. Was she really just a waitress, as she claimed? Or was there more to her story? Liam, you're doing it again, his assistant Claire said, breaking his train of thought as she entered the room with his schedule. You've been distracted all morning. Liam looked up at Claire, trying to shake off the lingering thoughts. I know. It's just, I met someone last night. A woman. And I can't stop thinking about her. Claire raised an eyebrow. A woman? Liam Parker doesn't get distracted by women. Liam shrugged, standing up and moving toward the window. This one's different. I don't know why, but I need to see her again. Later that afternoon, Emma was walking home from work when her phone buzzed with a new message. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the name at the top of the screen. It was from an unfamiliar number. Hey Emma, it's Liam. I know this might seem strange, but would you be interested in meeting up for coffee sometime? I'd like to make it up to you for the mix-up last night. She stared at the message for a long moment, her mind racing. Why was he texting her? Was he really interested? Or was this just some sort of pity gesture? She hadn't expected to hear from him again, let alone get an invitation to meet up. But there was something about his message that felt genuine, not forced. After a moment of hesitation, she replied, Sure, coffee sounds good. How about tomorrow? She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then quickly turned her phone over to avoid looking at it. The butterflies in her stomach weren't helping her nerves. The next day, Emma walked into the small cafe, her nerves once again getting the best of her. She glanced around, looking for Liam. There he was, sitting at a corner table by the window, looking exactly as he had the night before, well-dressed, relaxed, but still radiating that calm confidence she hadn't expected. Emma felt her heart skip a beat as she made her way over to him. Hi, she said, trying to sound casual as she took a seat across from him. I wasn't sure if you'd actually text me back. Liam smiled, a glint of amusement in his eyes. I wasn't sure either, but here we are. He paused, watching her as she settled into her seat. I'm glad you came. Emma smiled, feeling a little less nervous as the conversation started to flow. Easily again. They talked about everything and nothing. The small, silly details of their lives, their favorite places to visit in the city, the books they'd been reading lately. But beneath the casual talk, Emma couldn't ignore the feeling that there was something more between them, something real that she hadn't expected. By the time they finished their coffee, it felt like they had been talking for hours. Emma couldn't help but notice how different Liam was in person. There was a warmth to him, an authenticity that matched the man he had been the night before. He wasn't just a millionaire CEO. He was someone who genuinely cared, someone who seemed to want to get to know her. It was disorienting, but also comforting. As they said their goodbyes, Liam caught her hand for a moment, his touch gentle. "I'm really glad we met, Emma. I hope this isn't the last time." Emma smiled, her heart fluttering. "Me too." She walked away, feeling lighter than she had in days. Maybe there was more to this whole wrong table incident than she realized. Maybe, just maybe, fate had something else in store for her. In a part 2. It had been a few days since Emma had met Liam for coffee, and every time she thought about him, her heart skipped a beat. Their second meeting had felt different, more genuine, more real. She found herself smiling whenever she thought about their conversation, the way he had listened to her, the way he had made her feel like she mattered. She had convinced herself it was just a fluke, a fleeting connection, but the way her thoughts kept returning to him told her otherwise. Emma was back at the diner, working her usual shift, when she saw him again. He was standing near the entrance, looking just as polished and confident as he had the first time she saw him. But there was something softer in his eyes. Her stomach fluttered. She had told herself that she wouldn't be the kind of person who hung on to things like this, but seeing him now made it impossible to deny the attraction she felt. "Liam," she called out hesitantly, setting down her tray of dirty dishes. She hadn't expected to see him here, especially not at her workplace. But there he was, a familiar smile on his face. He turned, his gaze lighting up when he saw her. "Emma," he said, stepping forward. "I thought that was you. I wasn't sure if I should just call or come by." "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, a little breathlessly. "What brings you by?" Liam smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. Also, I had something I wanted to give you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Emma blinked, unsure what to make of it. She took the envelope from him with a curious look. "What's this?" she asked. Liam simply smiled and shrugged, as if it was no big deal. "Just open it," he said, his voice a little teasing. Emma carefully opened the envelope and pulled out a card. As she read it, her eyes widened in surprise. The card was an invitation to a charity gala that was happening in just a few days. But the thing that caught her attention the most wasn't the event. It was the fact that Liam had written a note at the bottom. "I would love for you to be my guest." Her heart skipped a beat. A gala? Why was he inviting her to something like this? She was just a waitress. "Liam, I don't know if I belong at something like this," she said, her voice hesitant. Liam's smile softened, and he gently reached out, placing a hand on her arm. "You belong, Emma. Don't sell yourself short. I wouldn't have invited you if I didn't want you there." Emma bit her lip, torn between feeling completely out of her element and excited by the gesture. She looked at Liam, who was still watching her with those same, patient eyes. "Are you sure?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. He nodded. "Absolutely. It's going to be a night to remember. And besides, I'd like to spend some more time with you." She could feel the warmth rising in her cheeks at his words, but she forced herself to smile. "All right, I'll go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It felt like a leap, but there was something in Liam's expression that made her want to trust him. He grinned, clearly pleased. "I'm glad. It's going to be great, I promise." They exchanged a few more words, and then Liam left, his figure disappearing into the bustling streets of the city. Emma stood there for a moment, the invitation still in her hand, a mix of excitement and nervousness bubbling up inside her. A gala. She had never been to something so fancy, so out of her league. But there was no denying the flutter in her stomach at the thought of spending more time with Liam. The next few days flew by, and soon enough, the night of the gala arrived. Emma had spent the whole afternoon getting ready, doing her best to look presentable. She wore a simple yet elegant dress she had borrowed from a friend, but she still felt like she didn't quite fit in with the crowd she imagined would be there. When she arrived at the venue, her heart pounded in her chest. The building was grand, sparkling with lights, and the lobby was filled with well-dressed people, all laughing and mingling. She felt a little out of place, but as soon as she stepped through the door, her eyes found Liam across the room. He was standing near a group of people, but the moment he saw her, he smiled and made his way toward her. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes lighting up as he took in her appearance. Emma couldn't help but blush, feeling the warmth of his words seep into her. "Thanks," she replied, smiling awkwardly. "I feel a little out of place, to be honest." Liam laughed softly. "You're not out of place at all. Trust me." As the evening went on, Emma began to relax, especially with Liam by her side. He introduced her to a few people, But most of the night, they spent talking to each other. She felt more at ease with every passing minute, enjoying the way he made her laugh, the way he listened to her. And as they stood on the balcony later that evening, the city lights twinkling below, Emma couldn't deny that she was beginning to feel something more than just a passing connection. Maybe this wasn't just a mistake after all. Maybe Liam was more than just the millionaire who had invited her to a gala. Maybe he was the kind of person who could change her life. Into part 3. The night of the gala felt like a dream that Emma didn't want to wake up from. She stood on the balcony next to Liam, the cold air brushing against her cheeks, but she hardly noticed. His presence was warm enough to keep her grounded. They had been talking for hours, and despite the glamour of the event around them, it was the simplicity of their conversation that made her feel like she truly belonged. Liam was different from the men she had met before. He was kind, attentive, and genuine. But there was still a part of her that held back, unsure if she was just caught up in the whirlwind of the night. As they continued talking, Emma couldn't help but steal a glance at the fancy crowd below, some of them in conversation, some laughing, all surrounded by the sparkling lights and endless champagne. She felt so out of place here, like she was a visitor in a world she didn't belong to. She was just a waitress, after all, with a dream of one day opening her own art studio. This was a world of millionaires, of power, and it felt so far removed from her everyday reality. Liam noticed her gaze, following her eyes to the crowd below. "What's on your mind?" he asked softly. Emma hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to voice the insecurities swirling inside her. I don't know if I belong here," she said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I'm not like the people here. I'm just a waitress. I don't have a business or a fancy career. I don't know why you're inviting me to all these events." He turned to face her, his expression softening. "You belong, Emma. You don't need a fancy title to be worthy of being here. I invited you because I wanted to. Because you're interesting, kind, and real. And that's enough for me." His words made her heart skip a beat. She had spent so much of her life feeling like she wasn't enough, like her dreams were too big for her small life. But hearing Liam say that she mattered, just as she was, made everything feel different. She wanted to believe him, but the doubts still lingered, the fear that this was all just too good to be true. Before she could say anything more, Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, wrapped in velvet. Emma blinked in surprise as he held it out to her. "What's this?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Liam smiled, his eyes warm. "It's a gift. For you. I wanted to give you something, to show you how much I appreciate you being here." She took the small box from him, her fingers trembling slightly. When she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a delicate silver necklace, the pendant shaped like a small heart. It was simple, elegant, and beautiful in a way that took her by surprise. "Liam, it's beautiful," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She couldn't believe he had gotten her something so precious, something that seemed so out of reach for someone like her. He smiled again, his gaze never leaving hers. "I wanted to give you something that showed how much you mean to me. You've made an impression on me, Emma, more than you know." Her heart raced as she looked up at him. She had never expected this. A gift, a gesture, it all felt so real. She wasn't sure if she was ready to admit how much she was beginning to care for him, but there was no denying the connection between them. Something about him made her feel like she was seen, like she wasn't just the waitress at a diner, but someone with value, with dreams worth pursuing. The night went on, and Emma found herself letting go of her earlier doubts. As the gala drew to a close, Liam took her hand and led her out into the crisp night air. The city lights sparkled around them, and Emma felt something inside her shift. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was part of something bigger. The walls she had built around herself, the fears that had held her back, seemed to fade away in the warmth of Liam's presence. "You really are something special, Emma," Liam said softly, his voice serious, but full of admiration. "I'm glad I found you that night." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest at his words. "I'm glad you did too," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As they walked back toward the car, Emma felt a sense of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. For the first time, she wasn't just hoping for a better life. She was beginning to believe it might actually be possible. End of Part 4. The days after the gala passed in a blur, and Emma found herself caught between excitement and fear. The feelings she had for Liam were growing stronger with each passing day, but she wasn't sure what to make of them. He was a millionaire, and she was still just a waitress trying to make ends meet. She had told herself she wouldn't get too attached, but the more they spent time together, the harder it was to ignore the connection between them. They spent afternoons at the park, walking and talking, sharing little details about their lives. Liam showed her parts of the city she had never seen, places filled with quiet corners and breathtaking views that seemed like a world away from her usual life. Emma had always dreamed of exploring the world, but never thought it could be possible for someone like her. Yet with Liam, it felt effortless, like she was part of something bigger. One evening, Liam invited her to dinner at a small Italian restaurant he'd discovered recently. It wasn't the kind of place that screamed luxury, but it was charming and intimate. The dim lighting and the scent of fresh bread made Emma feel at ease, like it was just the two of them in their own little world. As they sat across from each other, Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I've been thinking a lot about you, Emma," he said, his voice low and sincere. "And I want you to know that I'm not just saying this because I invited you to fancy events or bought you gifts. I really like you." His eyes locked with hers, and she could see the honesty in them, the same warmth that had drawn her to him in the first place. Emma felt her heart race, but this time, the feeling was different. It wasn't just a flutter of excitement. It was the deep, real connection she had been afraid to acknowledge. She had been so cautious, so afraid that maybe this was all just a fantasy. But sitting there with Liam, everything felt real. She squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of the moment. "I like you too," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I have to be honest with you, Liam. I've never been in a relationship like this. I'm not used to, well, someone like you." She paused, trying to find the right words. "I'm just a waitress, and I don't have the kind of life that fits into this world." Her voice faltered slightly as the insecurities she'd been battling came rushing back. Liam's thumb gently brushed across her hand, his touch reassuring. "I don't care about that, Emma. I care about who you are. The way you make me laugh, the way you think, the way you see the world." He paused for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "I want to be with you, not because of who I am, but because of who you are." He smiled softly. "You make me feel like I'm not just a CEO or a businessman. You make me feel like a person." He let out a small laugh. "And I think I need that." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest as his words sank in. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about the differences in their lives. She was thinking about what they shared. She felt heard, understood, and for once, she didn't feel like she had to hide her true self. She smiled back at him, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. "I never thought I would meet someone like you," she said softly. "I never thought someone like you would see me, really see me." Her voice wavered, but she held it together. "But I'm scared, Liam. I'm scared that maybe we're too different." She lowered her gaze for a moment, uncertain of how to express the vulnerability she was feeling. Liam gently lifted her chin, urging her to meet his eyes. "Emma," he said softly, "I get it. It's scary to take a chance, especially when it feels like everything in your life has led you to believe you're not enough. But I'm here. I'm here and I want to try. I want to see where this goes." He squeezed her hand once more, as if to solidify his words. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his sincerity. She had always been so afraid of her dreams being too big for her life. But with Liam, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they weren't. She had always believed that love had to be perfect, that it had to fit into the right boxes, but now she was starting to believe that love was about the imperfections, the moments of vulnerability, the willingness to be open, even when it was scary. As the night wore on, they finished their meal, their conversation flowing easily. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she could breathe, like she wasn't holding back any part of herself. She had never allowed herself to be this open with someone before, and yet with Liam, it felt natural. Later, as they walked out of the restaurant, Liam stopped and turned to her, his hand still holding hers. "Emma, I want to be with you. No strings attached. Just us, figuring this out together." He looked at her with those same, reassuring eyes that had melted her heart from the beginning. Emma smiled, her heart full. "I want that too, Liam," she said, her voice steady now, no longer uncertain. "I'm ready to try. Together." End of part 5. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, Emma felt more at ease with Liam. Their relationship was no longer just a whirlwind romance. It was turning into something real, something she hadn't dared to believe in for years. They spent their weekends together, visiting art galleries, taking long walks through Central Park, and sharing quiet dinners in the cozy little places that made her feel at home. Slowly, Emma started to believe in the possibility of love again. Liam, with his patience and understanding, was teaching her that it didn't matter where you came from or what you did for a living. What mattered was who you were and how you treated the people around you. One afternoon, after a particularly beautiful day at a museum, Liam invited Emma back to his penthouse. He had always been open about his wealth, but there was something different about this invitation, something that made her feel like she was about to step into a part of his life that she wasn't sure she was ready for. The penthouse, with its stunning view of the city, was a far cry from the cramped apartment she called home. As they entered, Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of her insecurities. She was still the same waitress from a small diner in Brooklyn, and this world of luxury, glass, and marble felt like it belonged to someone else. "Don't worry," Liam said, noticing her hesitation as she stepped inside. He smiled softly, reaching out to take her hand. "This is just a place. What matters is that you're here with me." She smiled back, trying to push away the self-doubt creeping up inside her. "It's just a lot. I'm not used to this." "I know," Liam said, his voice gentle. "But I want to share this with you. I want you to be a part of my life, Emma." They sat on the couch, and as the city lights twinkled below, Liam opened up in a way he never had before. "I've spent so much of my life building this empire, working, making deals, and chasing success. But none of that ever mattered to me the way you do. You remind me of who I am when I'm not working, when I'm just me." Emma felt a lump form in her throat at his words. She had never been one to think she deserved someone like Liam. He was everything she had ever dreamed of in a partner, successful, kind, and thoughtful. But she couldn't shake the fear that one day, he would realize she didn't belong in his world. As though sensing her thoughts, Liam reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I know what you're thinking," he said quietly, "but I need you to understand something. You are enough. You always have been." Emma looked into his eyes, the sincerity in his words making her heart swell. She had spent so long feeling invisible, like her dreams were too big for her, that she had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen. "Liam," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I never thought I could be part of a world like this. I've always felt like I'm too ordinary, too small." Liam smiled softly, his thumb brushing against her cheek. "There's nothing small about you, Emma. You make everything around you brighter. And you make me better." The silence between them grew comfortable, their gazes locked in a way that felt intimate, even without words. After a long pause, Liam spoke again, his voice steady and full of emotion. "I want you to know, I'm not asking you to change. I'm not asking you to fit into some idea of perfection. I just want you, the real you. I want to build something together. I don't care about the money or the fame. I care about who we are when we're with each other." Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she listened to him. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could finally let go of the walls she had built around herself. She didn't need to be someone else. She didn't need to fit into a perfect mold. With Liam, she could just be herself. "I want that too," she said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. "I want to build something with you, Liam. I just need to trust that this is real." He nodded, a gentle smile playing at the corners of his lips. "It is real, Emma. And I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The uncertainty that had lingered in Emma's chest for so long began to fade, replaced by a quiet, peaceful confidence. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to have all the answers. All she needed was Liam, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. End of part 6. Weeks passed, and Emma's life began to shift in ways she never imagined. The relationship with Liam was growing deeper, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future together. They spent more time at his penthouse, and Emma found herself growing more comfortable in his world. But even as she felt herself falling for him more every day, a part of her still struggled with the gap between their lives. Liam, the successful CEO, with all his wealth and power, and Emma, the waitress from a small diner, who had never quite believed she could belong in this world. One evening, after a long day at work, Emma was sitting in her apartment, staring out the window at the city lights. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Liam. Hey, can we talk? I have something important to share. Meet me at the penthouse. She felt a wave of nerves wash over her, unsure of what to expect. She had become so accustomed to their easy connection, their laughter-filled days, but something in his message felt different. There was a seriousness to it that made her uneasy. Emma arrived at the penthouse, her heart racing. She stepped inside and found Liam standing near the window, looking out over the city. He turned when he heard the door, his expression unreadable. Liam, what's going on? You said it was important, she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He smiled softly, but there was an edge to it that made her stomach turn. There's something I need to tell you, Emma, he said, his voice low. I've been thinking a lot about us and where we're headed. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. Was he going to tell her that he couldn't do this anymore? That they were too different? That it was just a fling for him? She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. What are you trying to say, Liam? He walked over to her, his hands in his pockets, his eyes never leaving hers. I'm not good at this. At relationships. I've spent so much of my life focused on work, on building this empire, that I forgot what it was like to just be. To be with someone, to let myself care about them. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Was he admitting something? Was he telling her that he cared, or was this going to be a breakup? I'm telling you this because I want to be honest with you, Liam continued. I know we come from different worlds, and maybe that's made things complicated. But Emma, you've become important to me. More than I've let myself admit. He paused, as if collecting his thoughts. I want to give this a real shot. I want to try to make this work, no matter what. Emma stood still, trying to process his words. She had always feared that their differences would catch up to them, that one day, she would be left behind because she didn't fit into his world. But Liam was standing in front of her now, telling her that he wanted to make it work. Could it be possible? Could she really take this leap with him? She swallowed hard, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know, Liam. I don't want to lose what we have, but I'm scared. I've spent my whole life believing that I wasn't good enough for someone like you. She looked down, her hands clenching in her lap. I've always been the girl who was too ordinary, too small. And I don't know if I can handle the pressure of being with someone like you. Liam took a step closer, gently cupping her face. In his hands, making her look up at him. Emma, he said softly, you are more than enough. You always have been. You don't need to change for me. I want you just the way you are. And if you'll let me, I'll show you how much you mean to me, every single day. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she stared into his eyes. For the first time, the doubt that had lingered in her chest started to fade. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was her chance at something real, something she had never thought possible. She reached out, placing her hands over his, the warmth of his touch grounding her. I want to try too, she whispered, her voice filled with determination. I want to be with you, Liam. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to take that step with you. He smiled, his eyes softening as he leaned in to kiss her forehead. That's all I need to hear. For the first time, Emma felt the weight of her fears lift, replaced by the quiet confidence of someone who had finally allowed herself to believe in love. With Liam, she didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to fit into a world that wasn't hers. All she needed was to be herself. And for the first time, that felt like enough. End of part 7. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest Emma had ever known. She and Liam had settled into a rhythm, learning to balance their vastly different worlds. They spent their days exploring new places in the city, taking long walks in the park, and enjoying simple, quiet nights at home. Emma found herself opening up more, allowing herself to be vulnerable in a way she had never done before. She had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was where she truly belonged. But even as things seemed to be falling into place, a part of Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was just on the horizon, something that would test everything they had built together. It was a Thursday evening when it happened. Liam had called her earlier that day, asking if she could meet him at his office. He sounded a little off, and she could tell by his tone that something was different. When she arrived at his office, the familiar warmth of their time together seemed to be replaced by an undeniable tension in the air. Liam was standing near his desk, his eyes lost in thought as he glanced at a few papers. He looked up when she walked in, a smile quickly forming on his face, but there was something else there, something she couldn't quite place. Hey, you're here, he said, his voice a little too cheerful, as if trying to cover up something more serious. Come on in. Emma hesitated for a moment, sensing that this wasn't just another casual meeting. "What's going on, Liam?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with concern. He motioned for her to sit down, taking a deep breath before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about, about trying to make this work, about us." His eyes met hers, but there was a flicker of hesitation there, as if he wasn't sure how to continue. Emma's heart began to race. She couldn't help but feel like this was the moment she had feared. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam sat down across from her, his hands clasped together. I've been offered an opportunity," he began, his words careful, measured. "An opportunity that could change everything for me. The thing is, it's a big decision, and it might mean a lot of time away from everything, including you." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she tried to process what he was saying. "You're leaving?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Is that what you're saying?" He shook his head quickly, reaching out to take her hand. "No, not exactly. But the opportunity could mean a shift in my career, in my life. It could take me away from the city, maybe even from everything we've been building here. And I don't want to make that decision without talking to you first." Emma felt a wave of panic rise within her. She had just started to believe that things could be real with him. The thought of him leaving, of the distance between them growing, felt like everything she had been afraid of. "I don't want to lose you," she said quietly, the fear in her voice unmistakable. "I've finally found something real, and now it feels like you're telling me it might slip away." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his expression full of sincerity. "I'm not leaving yet, Emma. And I'm not saying we're done. I just need to figure out what's best for both of us. I don't want to rush into anything, but I also don't want to lose what we have. I need to know if you're still willing to be with me, even if things change." Emma sat in silence for a moment, her mind racing. She couldn't deny the uncertainty that loomed over them, but there was something about Liam's words that calmed her. He wasn't giving up on them. He was just trying to figure out how to balance everything. And for the first time, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, she was strong enough to face whatever came next. "I don't want to lose you either," she said, her voice steady now. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to try. We'll figure this out together, no matter what comes our way." Liam smiled, a sense of relief washing over him. He leaned in, kissing her forehead gently. "Thank you, Emma. I promise we'll figure it out together." As they sat there, hand in hand, Emma realized that love wasn't always easy. It wasn't always about grand gestures or perfect moments. Sometimes, love meant facing the unknown, taking risks, and trusting that the person you were with would stand by you no matter what. And in that moment, with Liam by her side, she knew that no matter where life took them, they would always have each other. End of part 8. Months passed, and Emma and Liam found themselves stronger than ever. The decision that had once threatened to tear them apart had become a new beginning, a chance to redefine their lives together. Liam had taken the opportunity, but he had made sure that it didn't mean giving up on their relationship. It meant late-night phone calls, surprise visits, and small moments that reminded them of what they shared. The distance had tested them, but it had only made their connection deeper. One chilly morning, as Emma walked down the familiar streets of Brooklyn, she found herself smiling more often. She was still working at the diner, still chasing her dreams of opening her own art studio, but things had shifted. Liam had supported her every step of the way, helping her believe in herself more than she ever had before. They had come a long way from their first awkward meeting, from the uncertainty of whether they could make it work. And now, as she made her way to the studio she had just opened, a small but bright space filled with canvases and paint, she felt like everything was falling into place. The door of the studio opened, and there stood Liam, his smile lighting up the room. He had flown in for the day, just to surprise her. Emma's heart fluttered as she walked toward him, her arms opening wide. He had been gone for a week, but every time they were apart, it felt like the days stretched on forever. She had missed him more than she had realized. "I missed you," Emma said softly, wrapping her arms around him. "I can't believe you're here." Liam kissed her forehead, his arms pulling her closer. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, Emma. You're doing something incredible here. I'm proud of you." Emma smiled, her heart swelling at his words. "It's been a lot of work, but I'm finally doing it. I never thought I'd get to this point, but with you supporting me, it feels real." Liam stepped back for a moment, his eyes softening. "Emma, there's something else I need to say. Her heart skipped a beat, unsure of what he was about to say. Was this a new challenge, another obstacle they had to overcome? He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Emma's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a delicate diamond ring. I want to build a life with you, Emma. Not just a relationship, but a future. Will you marry me? The words hung in the air, and Emma's heart raced. She had imagined this moment in the past, but now that it was happening, she was overwhelmed with emotion. She had spent so many years believing that she wasn't enough, that a life like this wasn't possible for someone like her. But now, with Liam standing in front of her, it felt like a dream come true. She blinked back tears, her voice trembling as she answered, "Yes. Yes, I will marry you." He smiled, his face lighting up with pure joy. He slid the ring onto her finger, and, for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like everything was exactly as it should be. They had faced their fears, their doubts, and they had come out stronger on the other side. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that love wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about having everything figured out or living in a fairy tale. It was about finding someone who saw you, who supported you, and who was willing to stand by your side no matter what. And for Emma, that someone was Liam. End of part 9.